The latest Genshin update contains a lot of insane changes, one of which includes an entirely new game mode called Miliastra Wonderland, and in this video, I am quickly going to cover everything you need to know about version 6.1, also known as Luna 2. So, let's first start with the upcoming Archon quest, and let me tell you, it looks pretty dope. Not only does Varka finally show up, and we get to witness his glorious and buff character model, but Arlecchino also pays us a visit. In fact, we're now teaming up with 3 Harbingers because the big bad boss of this update is going to be Rerir. In fact, Hoyo even previewed a couple of combat phases against him, but interestingly enough, they didn't confirm if he will be a weekly boss, and from what I've gathered so far, it seems like this may just be a one-off fight. Other than that, Durin was also revealed for a moment. His attire actually looks really fitting, and as Albedo enjoyer, it warmed my heart to see them together. But yeah, Act 3 and 4 will be available to play through when the update arrives, and by completing it, you'll also obtain 560 Primo Gems, as well as level up materials for Nefer. Now, the devs also quickly previewed the updated content for Selene Chronicles. Basically, you can spend even more time with Columbina, and obtain some rewards that we couldn't obtain before. Plus, you can also receive a blessing here that enables Ascendant Gleam buff in Naughty Cry with just 1 unit instead of 2. Oh, and finally, a new world boss called Frost Knight Hera will be added to the game, and the livestream cast confirmed its materials will be named by Nefer. Okay, so this is definitely going to be the chunkiest part of the video because a ton of new info was revealed about the upcoming UGC mode, also known as Miliastra Wonderland. Long story short, think of it like Roblox but for Genshin. Here you can join custom game modes created by the community or start creating those modes yourself, while at the same time, you can use your very own custom-made character to experience this gameplay mode. But let's start from the beginning. So, once Luna 2 update is live, you can access Miliastra Wonderland mode by navigating to the menu here, or just directly press it in the upper right shortcuts. And in order to actually start this game mode, you will need to complete the Archon's Prologue quest. Basically, the same time you unlock the gacha is when you unlock this mode. I'm only saying this for new people who haven't started playing yet. Now, how it works is that for the moment, you can only use a custom character called Mannequin to experience this new game mode. However, you can fully customize the Mannequin and even switch between genders. It looks like the customization for the model is alright, doesn't seem to be that deep. However, this is where outfits come in. If you ever played a dress-up gacha game, such as Infinity Nikki, you might be familiar with some of these new mechanics, but let's go through how this system actually works. Okay, so first of all, on the left side here, we can see a ton of outfit pieces that the mannequin can be dressed with. And obviously the first question that comes to mind, how do you obtain them? Well, there's actually a bunch of different ways, but starting with the first one, you can get some outfits from the Awakening Chronicle. Basically a battle pass, but for Miliastra Wonderland. It contains a bunch of cosmetics and other rewards specifically for this game mode. However, if you buy the actual Gnostic Hymn battle pass, then Miliastra's battle pass is unlocked for free. Well, the $5 version. And then vice versa, if you buy the $5 version Miliastra battle pass, then the actual real battle pass we all know and love becomes $5 cheaper. In a nutshell, the devs are trying to say that you can double dip into both of these battle passes with just one purchase. Now, the second method is by crafting the outfits. I am using air quotes for the word crafting here because in reality, there is some crafting involved similar to how furnishings work in Genshin, but to craft the outfit items, you will need to pull for outfit blueprints from the standard Ode banner. You heard it right, there's gacha for outfits. Not only that, there's also going to be a featured outfit banner, which is the third method of how you can obtain super exclusive outfits. And the first featured banner called Phantom Night Candlelight has this witch/wizard/spooky theme. These outfits specifically will be of 5-star rarity, I believe, while every 10 pull you make guarantees a 4-star outfit item you can get from one of these 3 elite sets. Anyways, so that's the gacha. But you can also just straight up buy outfit pieces from the in-game shop. Not sure if it's only possible to do it with real money, or you'll be able to use some kind of free-to-play currency, but if you have rich or generous friends, the devs did mention you can gift basically any outfit piece in this game to anyone in the friends list. Oh man, Genshin is really entering Fortnite and Roblox era with the fashion madness. Now finally, the last method of gaining outfit items is by simply playing the game and participating in events. As you can see, one of the images shown here depict the type of rewards you can get for just doing some basic tasks once Miliastra is released. Keep in mind, this resource called Geode of Replication is used for the standard banner. Not much has been revealed how the actual monetization will work for the featured outfit banners. But Get this, you can actually use the mannequin with all the custom outfits in the open world together with other Genshin units. If that's not enough, using the mannequin skill or burst also allows you to shift to an alternate outfit, although it's not clear how it actually works just yet. Other than that, you can even snap a picture of your mannequin and use it as your profile's avatar. Now that's pretty cool. Although, I do wonder how good the kit is going to be, and if you can use the mannequin in endgame modes as well. Also, and this is quite interesting, the mannequin's level increases based on how much you played Miliastra Wonderland. You don't need to use any resources to increase the mannequin's level. It will be tied to the level of your progress in the Wonderland. But yeah, aside from all the outfit and mannequin stuff, we're left with the actual game mode, or should I say game modes. Basically, from the looks of it, you can join any of the lobbies by browsing community-created games, ranging from FPS to adventure to party games and so on. The devs did mention that if you want to play in single player, you can host private lobbies. Of course, it will depend on the game mode if it supports single player, but it's good to know for those who just want to play solo. And as for those who want to become creators, well, there's a robust creation tool system, with documentation included. Plus, you can even join dedicated forums for questions or discussions. There is no actual coding involved. Everything is done visually, and you can see some logic programming in this interface. But honestly, if the devs really want to see some crazy inventions, they gotta allow some kind of scripting language to run. Just make it optional for those who have programming background. Anyway, besides that, you'll also be able to earn some money from your created games, and there was some talk of even better reward program once Luna 4 version arrives. And on top of that, the more games you created, the better access to features you gain. And to me, that sounds a bit iffy because just give full creative freedom from the start. I don't know, that's just my own opinion. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The gameplay loop looks pretty clear by now. You go into this mode, you play with others or play solo, rate your experience to help creators out, earn some in-game rewards by completing tasks, spend money if you want to on costumes, or try to craft them as free to play. And then if you go outside this mode, you can still use the mannequin with all the custom outfits and even explore the open world. And of course, if you do decide to become a creator, there's a whole bunch of rewards including real-life money waiting for you, provided your game mode gains traction. So yeah, Roblox Genshin, here we come. Okay, coming back to the real world of Genshin, let's talk about the newest upcoming character, Nefer. She's a 5-star Dendro Catalyst user, and basically, she specializes in dealing Lunar Bloom damage. The only way to do this is by tapping her skill and then using her charged attacks. It looks like each charge attack will consume 1 Verdant Dew, which is the resource that you gain after causing a Lunar Bloom reaction. On top of that, when the team is in Ascendant Gleam state, Nefer's passive talent allows her skill to transform Dendro cores on the ground into Seeds of Deceit, which can then be absorbed by her charge attacks and help increase her damage output further. And then when it comes to her burst, it just deals some AoE damage, but the stacks you've obtained from Seeds of Deceit will power up its damage. Oh, and interestingly enough, with Nefer, you can gather intel on some NPCs in the game, possibly to just reveal some additional lore, although they did mention some kind of intel exchange function at the Adventurers Guild, where you can experience some side stories. I'm a bit confused here because, is this only possible with Nefer then? Because they've also mentioned at some point a message board that you can visit in Curatorium of Secrets, and it sounded like anybody can do this, even if they didn't pull for Nefer, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. Anyway, besides that, she can also be deployed to 20-hour expeditions and bring back more rewards. Finally, let's quickly go through the banners. In Phase 1, Nefer and Furina will be the featured 5-stars along with their signature weapons. However, and get this, the weapons banner will also contain 3 new 4-star weapons. And as we can see, Moonweaver's Dawn is on this banner. This is the same weapon that you could obtain 1 copy of from Naughty World Quest. And I'll be honest, I'm a bit annoyed here because I featured this weapon at fully refined strength in one of my videos, and I made that video using Creator Experience Server. Nobody told me only 1 copy of it will be available from a quest, while the rest of copies need to be pulled from the banner. So I'm just as confused as you are, guys, if you're trying to figure out how to refine it. Anyway, moving over to the second phase, Arlecchino and Zhongli will be the featured 5-stars, and while they didn't confirm it yet, I'm assuming Arlecchino's signature will be on the weapons banner, which means Vortex Vanquisher is probably going to be the other 5-star weapon, so keep that in mind. And by that, I mean, you better hope you don't lose your 50-50 if you're pulling for Arlecchino's signature. Alright, as always, there's gonna be some events, and the major one, called Ruins Exploration Fieldwise Center, will be based around Sumeru. It actually involves a big cast of Sumeru characters, and the main focus will be put on Layla. who went stargazing and fell into some kind of ancient ruin. Who knows, maybe this event will have some actual lore about the moon. But besides that, the first minigame of this event will have you use Baron Bunny and Collie's doll to traverse and collect coins. Then in second minigame, you will need to guide Farazan's puzzle pal by using correct elemental reactions. And then finally, the third minigame is a combat event with some kind of objectives you'll need to achieve to gain better score. And the main reward for doing all of this is going to be a free copy of Collie, along with the usual resources. Moving over to smaller events, the first one called Dance Dance Dynamic Disco is a rhythm minigame, and it looks pretty ridiculous in a good way. Then there's Saurian Sojourn event, where you will need to navigate some puzzles along with your Saurian buddy, which to me is always a treat when it comes to interacting with Natlan's Pokemon. And then finally, we have Overflowing Abundance making a comeback yet again, plus Genius Invocation TCG is getting a bunch of new cards, and a few modes will be making a return. But yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to events. You can see the whole schedule shown here. Okay, so this time around, it's very unusual, but the devs didn't really share any quality of life changes. I mean, there was a quick mention that Nodikai's blacksmith can now show the nearest mining nodes, but that's it. I mean, I guess I can quickly cover the investment portfolio thing, where you could talk to this NPC and buy some kind of coupons, but it felt like a scam doing it every week. So in this upcoming update, you can actually investigate this whole situation and find out whether it's a scam, and you can even use Nefer to help out. Oh, and yeah, final tidbit of news. The first Nodikai OST album will be dropping soon, which is always something I look forward to listen on my Spotify. Anyway, hope you found this video useful. I will be releasing both Miliastra Wonderland and Nefer videos pretty soon, so be sure to subscribe to my channel because I'm gonna be working like a horse to get you those videos. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. So, I got early access to Nefer, and I think we're in a bit of a complicated situation. Because, on one hand, her gameplay might seem simple, but utilizing techniques like dash canceling can help improve her damage significantly, which is great if you want to perfect the character. And she also deals really good damage. But once Lauma joins the party, then things become truly ridiculous, to the point that I started questioning my sanity. And so, in this Constellation Zero Nefer video, I am gonna reveal to you everything you need to know about this premier Lunar Bloom damage dealer, where I will especially focus on her free-to-play potential versus premium teams, as well as showcase many other team variations and loadouts I've tested, so that you can decide for yourself if this cat lady is worth pulling for. Okay, so for the majority of video, I'll be showcasing Nefer with Black Marrow Lantern, the craftable Nodkai Catalyst. And then, as for artifacts, this time around, they're quite beefy. She's equipped with Night of the Skies Unveiling Set. Also, notice her main stats are EM critical rate, and I'll explain shortly why Elemental Mastery for Nefer is like Osmanthus Wine for Zhongli. Now, lastly, her skill is raised to max level 10, while normals and burst are at level 9, and of course, she's Constellation 0. Oh, and keep in mind, I made this video on Creator Experience server, so final content is subject to change. Anyway, starting off with normal attacks, they deal negligible dendro damage. I would just keep them at level 1 and save up on resources. She does have a unique charge attack which allows her to enter Slither State, which supposedly improves her movement speed, and you can use this as an exploration ability, but I'm gonna be honest with you guys. It's literally about as fast as you would just hold dash button, although I think it helps you save a tiny smidge of stamina. And this Slither also lasts for a short time, and then goes into a charge attack, so you need to dash cancel to keep slithering. So yeah, not the most amazing or clear exploration mechanic. But let's talk about what we're here for. Big damage from big legs. And by that I mean her elemental skill. The dummy version of it would be that you press the skill, and then if you have Verdant Dew, you can perform up to 3 charge attacks, which will deal a ton of Lunar Boom damage. And because the skill has 2 charges, you can do it for the second time again. And for example, by following this basic combo shown here, Nefer with a free-to-play weapon in a free-to-play team delivers roughly 1.4 million damage over 18 seconds or so. To give you some perspective, her burst, if you decide to use it, deals about 150k damage. So basically around 90% 90% of damage comes from the skill, or more specifically, the Lunar Bloom damage she deals. I think we have another Flynns on our hands. Wait, that's a cat. But okay, let's back it up a little, and let me explain to you how the Lunar Bloom sausage is really made with Nefer. So, Nefer's third passive talent states that whenever anybody in team causes Bloom, instead it becomes Lunar Bloom Reaction, which, as we all know it, it's functionally identical to Bloom, and the only change is that Lunar Blooms generate Verdant Dew resource every 2.5 seconds, which Nefer will heavily rely on. On top of this, the passive also increases Lunar Bloom's base damage by up to 14%, which scales with Nefer's Elemental Mastery, and all you need is 800 of it to max out the buff, so it's gonna be super easy, barely an inconvenience. Alright, so going back to the skill, now with a more in-depth look, when you tap it, she dashes to the closest enemy and deals a small amount of damage, like around 5 to 10k. Then, for 9 seconds, Nefer enters into a Shadow Dance state, which is also visually indicated by her cloak glowing in this green color. Now, while this state lasts, Nefer can consume 1 Verdant Dew to unleash a special charge attack, which starts off with 2 regular counts of Dendro damage, and then she summons her Shade to deal 3 counts of Lunar Bloom damage. This can be repeated 2 more times, so basically, one press of a skill lets you unleash 3 of these special charge attacks. With her free-to-play build, the first 2 Lunar Bloom hits deal about 70k damage, while the last third hit is about 95k damage. And adding on the minuscule Dendro damage, the combined total of 1 charge attack is about 240k damage. Now, once the third charge attack is done, or 9 seconds have passed, Nefer leaves her Shadow Dance state. However, since the skill has 2 charges, you can just immediately press it again and do 3 more charge attacks. Keep in mind, each special charge attack here requires Nefer to consume 1 Verdant Dew, and she actually has a second passive, which, quite frankly, made me go a bit insane when testing it out because it seems to be worded quite poorly here. But long story short, when she's in her Shadow state, party members who cause Lunar Bloom besides her extend her duration of Verdant Dew generation, depending on how much EM Nefer has. Honestly, this passive will be easily maxed out, so with 1000 EM, which is the cap, each Verdant Dew generation effect is increased by 50%. So if normally you can get 1 Verdant Dew every 2.5 seconds, with this passive, the team can generate 1.5 Verdant Dew every 3.75 seconds. So this is more or less kind of a useless passive if the team can generate Lunar Blooms consistently. But if enemy gets out of Hydra application range, or the Hydra application is slower, then perhaps it's good. But yeah, it's not super significant, but more like a nice thing to have for Verdant Dew generation. Anyway, where was I? Oh, right. The remaining first passive is where things get interesting. So, as long as the team is in Ascendant Gleam state, which as a reminder, this means you have 2 Nodcry units on the team, then when Nefer uses her skill, all the Dendro cores on the ground become Seeds of Deceit, and for 15 seconds afterwards, any Dendro cores that would be generated are instead generated as Seeds of Deceit. And what do they do besides standing there menacingly? Well, once Nefer uses her charge attack, she will absorb all nearby Seeds of Deceit, and the absorption range seems pretty good as I've tested. But yeah, once the seeds are absorbed, for each seed, she gains 1 stack of Veil of Falsehood, and each stack gives 8% damage increase to her special charge attack. And you can have a total of 3 max stacks, so 24% total. Keep in mind, this is a multiplicative bonus, so it's literally multiplying her damage by 1.24, which is a huge improvement, and one of the reasons you really want to play her in Ascendant teams. Oh, and by the way, you can see how many stacks she has by looking at the teams on the right or above her HP bar. Still, these stacks expire after 9 seconds, but can also be refreshed by obtaining more. And from my own experience, they are very easy to obtain and maintain throughout the whole rotation. Most importantly, as long as Nefer has 3 of these stacks, she also gains 100 extra Elemental Mastery bonus for 8 seconds. But yeah, going back to her skill and Lunar Bloom charge attacks, one thing I haven't told you yet is that you can actually use dash cancels to significantly reduce her on-field time. So normally, if you want to unleash all 3 charge attacks, you just hold down the attack button and it will be done in about 5 seconds. However, you can also just dash as shown here, and the shades that Nefer summons still finish their entire animation. And compared to just holding down attack, dash cancel charge attacks last about 3.5 seconds. So that's like 1.5 seconds shorter. And remember, since you will do another row of 3 charge attacks after pressing skill, you can end up saving cutting over 3 seconds of Nefer's field time, which can result in about 15% better DPS. Now, there are some caveats. For example, I'm not sure if it's my ping or my old bones, but I might be dash canceling too early because the second Dendro hit rarely shows up. I mean, it barely contributes to overall damage. We're talking about less than 1%, but for those hardcore people out there, I was told it's possible to dash cancel and include the second hit. Just keep in mind, the most important damage are those 3 Lunar Bloom hits, and they always land with a dash cancel. The other thing about dash canceling is that sometimes, depending on how many Verdant Dews you had at the start of rotation, this can sometimes lead to just Nefer running out of Verdant Dews before she can do her next charge attack. But I'll talk about this a lot more in her guide, although safe to say, in like majority of time, dash canceling is just better than simply holding attack. Now, the last thing I want to cover in her kit would be the burst. It costs 60 energy and it deals 2 counts of damage. With my free-to-play build and team, we can see 61 and 92,000 damage numbers appear. So it's like decent damage, but in the grand scheme of things, and by that I mean when looking at maintaining high DPS, it's usually not worth using it unless you want to finish off the enemy. On top of that, those Veil of Falsehood stacks that Nefer has, they all get consumed by burst and increase damage by a bit. So this means you need to re-obtain all 3 stacks again for her Lunar Bloom damage to be big. I mean, look, overall, I'd say from my own testing, if the burst is available, great, you can use it at the end of Nefer's rotation, but it's absolutely not worth building any energy recharge on her. It's just not a great damaging ability. There are some cases where the burst can be used in an interesting way, and I'll talk about this in the team section, but yeah, 90% of damage comes from Nefer's Lunar Bloom damage, and it's totally fine to just use burst once in a while. Okay, I think we're just about done with the kit overview, so let me add one final thing I think most haven't realized yet. Elemental Mastery for Nefer is extremely valuable. You might have noticed both her skill and burst dual scales with attack and EM, but attack is actually so bad on Nefer that if you swapped out her attack goblet to HP goblet, you'd notice like a couple of % of damage drop off. And you know why? It's because if you look at those 3 Phantasm performance hits, these are the charge attacks that deal Lunar Bloom damage, and it makes up, as I said before, more than 90% of Nefer's entire damage output. And as you can see, Lunar Bloom damage here only scales with Elemental Mastery, hence why in this showcase, my Nefer has EM Sands and Goblet, while of course, since Lunar Bloom can critical hit, it benefits from critical rate and damage. So yeah, Elemental Mastery, critical rate, and critical damage are the only things that matter to Nefer. And because of this, we have to talk about her current team situation because, boy oh boy, it's a bit weird. Okay, so let's investigate the llama situation. Compared to free-to-play team I've showcased before, even if I, let's say, replace Dendro Traveler with Nahida, it's still nowhere close to how much llama brings to the table. And by that, I mean, llama provides roughly 40 to 50% damage increase for Nefer. This is beyond crazy, and we're talking about llama without signature, because if she had it, that's like another 9% of extra damage boost for Nefer. And here's the thing, notice how when we combine all of Nefer's Lunar Bloom hits, the total is 18 hits. When llama uses her burst, she grants exactly 18 him stacks, which give a big boost to Lunar Bloom damage. Coincidence? I think not. Especially since now only Nefer should be using Verdant Dews 24/7 with llama in a team. So all the Dare Lady can do is just tap skill. But that's totally fine because llama's skill still shreds up to 25% Dendro resistance. And on top of that, remember that llama's first passive for Ascendant Gleam teams grants 10% critical rate and 20% critical damage boost for Lunar Blooms, or basically plus 40 CV for Nefer. It's just hard to believe how much value llama gives to Nefer, and in my opinion, she feels even more impactful than Escoffier Skirk. Yeah, that's what we're dealing with here. And look, the damage output from Nefer is pretty great even without llama, but because currently there's not a lot of synergy going on with supports, llama just ends up providing a ton of value. Like, for example, if we take a look at my free-to-play team I've been running, it's made up of Dendro Traveler, C0 Ino, and Sucrose. There's just not a lot of ways to buff Nefer's damage, and she will be contributing to like 98% of total damage for this team. Like, sure, C0 Ino is equipped with Instructors to provide 120 EM boost, and she also has Forest Regalia, which after causing Dendro-related reaction, generates this leaf on the ground, and when picked up grants 120 EM. But it's so inconsistent and random. Seriously, I forgot how annoying it is to pick up the leaf. And then we have Sucrose. The only reason she's in the team is simply because 20% of her EM can be transferred to Nefer. That's basically it. She doesn't even use TTDs because for Nefer, attack is irrelevant for her Lunar Bloom damage. And Sucrose actually needs EM substep from weapon anyway, so Sacrificial Frags can help with that and her skill consistency. And then, yeah, Dendro Traveler can give 50 EM over time, but they're mostly used to just set up initial Virgin 2 generation. I could replace Dendro Traveler with someone like Nahida, who will be like one of the better supports for Lauma, but again, no one even comes close to Lauma's impact. However, it is kind of funny when using both Aino and Sucrose because instructors said and Sucrose EM boost each last 8 seconds. And so I was using this rotation with Nefer, where after I swap to her, I do the first skill and 3 charge attacks, then use the burst, and then swap to Aino and Sucrose to reapply their buffs, and come back to Nefer to do another round of skill and triple charge attack. It's a bit wacky, but yeah, that's how it works. However, one thing to note would be that her free-to-play teams lack a healer or shielder, so you could use a healer like Yao Yao or Baiju as a Dendro option. Baiju is actually one of the best supports besides Lauma since he can buff Lunar Bloom damage by up to 35%. So 5 of you who pulled for Baiju, he's actually really nice, congrats. I've seen others recommending C6 Diona to get that 200 EM boost, but after testing her out, yeah, her burst cooldown is way too long. And without the burst, she just makes Nefer's personal potential suffer. Anyway, so what if you do have Lauma? What is the best team comp then? Well, so far, Lauma, Nahida, and C6 Aino is what I would consider the premium meta team. C6 Aino actually ends up boosting Nefer's damage by about 10 to 15%, which is quite impressive. And then Nahida's burst can give 250 EM, which again is a very valuable buff to Nefer. However, when looking at some other alternative team comps, assuming Lauma is in the team, then for the Hydro option, so far the best 3 picks would be Xingqiu, Furina, and Aino. They're mostly there just for the sake Hydro gets applied, because something like Furina's damage percent buffing is kinda useless for Nefer. It might slightly improve her burst and those Dendro hits from charge attack, but it's laughably small. Remember, Lunar Bloom does not scale with any damage percent buffs. You also might be wondering, why Xingqiu but not Yelan mentioned? Well, the thing is, Nefer's charge attacks by default will not launch a coordinated attack from Xingqiu or Yelan, and you would have to start weaving in normal attacks to keep applying Hydro, which results in horrible damage drop-off due to how much time you need to spend doing this. The only reason why Xingqiu gets mentioned is simply because both his skill and burst summons these orbiting swords, and by hugging the enemy, they still apply Hydro. Plus, he gives some sustain with damage reduction and small healing. Otherwise, you can just use Kokomi, Barbara, or even Sijuin for some Hydro application. Now, the last slot is where things get interesting because, I don't know if you've noticed, but Nefer teams don't really have a lot of sustain options. Well, at least the meta team. But so far, Zhongli seems like a decent pick since that thick shield can also prevent Nefer from getting interrupted, which, believe me, sometimes that does happen and it's annoying. Although, you could even go for something like Chi-Chi with Sacrificial Sword and Serenade set, just so there's some healing, and Serenade set can be maintained by our zombie girl. I know, Chi-Chi in 2025, what a time to be alive. While I guess she's not alive. However, you can also just put Fischl in the team, or even in Nefa. That's right, you can actually go from hyper DPS Nefer to hyper DPS Nefer, with now a bit of supportive damage coming from either Fischl or in Nefa. Oh, and yeah, what about Nefer outside Ascendant teams? And by that, I mean Hyperbloom team comp like this one. Well, let's just say it's decent, but obviously nowhere as good as running her in Ascendant teams. Also, one interesting little detail I didn't mention, but when in Ascendant teams, Nefer enables those Seeds of Deceit, they actually cannot be triggered into Hyperblooms or Burgeon, which is pretty funny. So, what do I think about this fellow cat owner? Well, initially I thought she was kinda simple, maybe even boring, because all you do with her is just tap skill and hold down attack, then repeat it once more and that's it. But once I learned more about dash cancels, it definitely became more interesting, and saving those few seconds can lead to some entirely different rotations, like with that free-to-play comp where I swap back and forth to refresh buffs on Nefer. Other than that, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Lauma's overwhelming damage improvement. I was actually calculating Nefer's signature and first constellation, and I might be way off here, but basically, with just Black Marrow Lantern, Nefer together with C0R1 Lauma still outputs about as much damage if you played a team without Lauma, but Nefer was C1R1, so I guess similar investment levels? Anyway, besides that, I did find Nefer's gameplay enjoyable because she's not tied to her burst or even energy, so world exploration with her was actually quite nice, since you just show up, press skill, and beat enemies up with those long, gracious legs of hers. But yeah, hope you found this video interesting. Nefer's full guide with a ton of details will be out on her release day, so be sure to subscribe to my channel and press like on this video to help with the algorithm. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you very soon.